Did you expect anything different? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, with instant analysis on the game. And as I have explained to my kids today, it will remain the game regardless of the lopsided scores on the field or the continued dominance by the Ohio State University since 2004. 56-27 this time. Looks much like it did last year in Urban Meyer's finale in this series as he completed a 7-0 run. 62-39. Now Ryan Day takes over, and it looked much the same. I am going to highlight various aspects of this game, various players. Ohio State could easily, I don't know if this is going to be the case, but send 3 Heisman finalists to New York. The team's been that dominant, and these particular players have been this dominant. Chase Young, though, not really a factor in this game because Michigan was preparing for Chase Young in the Ohio State pass rush, and the Michigan offensive line played an extremely strong game in this one, giving protection to Shea Patterson in the first half in which he torched the Ohio State secondary. So that would be the one concern for the Buckeyes early in this game, that in the first half, Shea Patterson threw for 250. Don't look at the final box score in assessing Shea Patterson's performance in this game. I was impressed with Shea Patterson. Sure, he made some mistakes, and Michigan made mistakes. I made this statement earlier this week that I did not expect Michigan to, quote, lose this game with mistakes, penalties, just not showing up, not giving a focused effort. Yes, Michigan made mistakes, and we will outline those mistakes that did not allow them to stay in the game for longer than they did. Yes, they made mistakes, but how many teams in football, in the game of football, don't make mistakes throughout a game? It just doesn't happen. This Ohio State team is just so ultra-talented. We are looking at most likely the best team in the country, certainly one of the 4 best teams in the country, and they were playing today a really good Michigan team at home. That's a top 10 to 15 team. So this is still the separation between these 2 teams and these 2 programs. J.K. Dobbins ran for 211 yards today and 4 touchdowns. And yes, the Ohio State run blocking up front was very stout much of the game. Until Ohio State got the lead, in which Michigan clamped down on the run game and knew that Ohio State was going to lean on the run more heavily, and they started to stop at J.K. Dobbins. Early in the game, when it really mattered, the offensive line did the job, and J.K. took on from there. He is a tremendous running back, arguably the best running back in college football. 211 on the ground with 31 carries, coming off a 36-carry performance against Penn State. 4 touchdowns on the ground. He caught 2 passes for 49 yards as well. 250 yards from J.K. Dobbins. Justin Fields, maybe the most important play of the game, was when Justin Fields was brought to he had completed a pass. He stuck in the pocket. This was in the third quarter, and laid out a pass that was on the money on the right side of the field, but the pocket collapsed. His knee was rolled under, and he had to leave the game. And, of course, that is the one loss that Ohio State cannot endure in a national championship potential run here. Justin Fields had to leave the game for the rest of that series, or actually he didn't leave the game for the rest of the series. He left for about 5 to 6 plays. He came back and threw that ridiculous dime on the run, running against his throwing arm, going left to Garrett Wilson in the back of the end zone, threw that beautiful ball to complete that drive. Justin Fields again steps up, and this time in a game in which maybe he didn't entirely understand the significance of this game. I'm sure it's been drilled into his head by Ryan Day and his teammates, and by alumni and fans repeatedly, because as I continue to enlighten my children too, who have seen nothing but Ohio State dominance, this one will carry weight that no other game does. We saw Ryan Day's comments after the game on the field. He was choked up. He was emotional. He doesn't get that way after they beat Wisconsin. He didn't get that way after they beat Penn State in a much tougher game on the scoreboard. But he knows what weight he carries after Urban Meyer left a legacy of 7-0 and Jim Tressel 9-1, and the Ohio State dominance, and just the weight of this game. Ask John Cooper, of course. And now we will get to Jim Harbaugh at some point and his 0-5 slate against Ohio State. Justin Fields, 14 of 25 for 302, 4 touchdowns, now has 37 passing touchdowns on the season, 1 interception. How do you keep him from not going to New York City to the Heisman Trophy Award ceremony? Most importantly for the Buckeyes on this day, looking ahead to a Big Ten championship game against, I've got it right behind me, Minnesota-Wisconsin playing. Justin Fields only had to run the ball 6 times. Now, the Michigan pass rush was causing some issues early in this game, and it was apparent that Ohio State would be more dominant in run blocking, but the Michigan pass rush did its job in pockets in this game to make things difficult on Justin Fields. Hence the 14 for 25, not a high completion percentage, but huge plays downfield. And, of course, the Ohio State second touchdown came courtesy another Wolverine killer in Chris Olave. 57 yards as he streaked down the right sideline. Justin Fields put it on him. Perfect throw right out in front. Olave, of course, with 2 touchdown receptions in the big win in Columbus last year and a blocked punt, which was critical. Shea Patterson, I talked about it. The box score says 18 for 43, but he threw for 250 in the first half when it was still a competitive game, and threw a touchdown pass with 1 interception. The interception was very late. The game was decided, did not throw an interception, but he had a costly mistake in this one, which we are getting to. The Michigan offensive line against Ohio State's pass rush was good enough. They weren't perfect, but you can't be against Chase Young and company with all that talent across the defensive front. And we sometimes don't note the other players up front, like Jonathan Cooper, like Davon Hamilton, like Robert Landers, and others that are premier, Tyreek Smith, other tremendous players up front for Ohio State. It all goes the credit to Chase Young, but it's the entire defensive front for Ohio State that is elite. And Michigan's offensive line and pass protection was good for much of the game. Ohio State's linebackers and secondary struggled in coverage in this one. Jeffrey Okudah made some fine plays, some pass breakups. Later in the game, we saw Jordan Fuller make some plays on the ball. Damon Arnett as well. There was a key play late in the game in which Jordan Fuller did not target the Michigan wide receiver. I believe it was Donovan Peoples-Jones, or it might have been Ronnie Bell. So I was pleased that the official made the right call. It is almost impossible what we ask these defenders to do, regardless of the team, what we ask these defenders to do in keeping out of harm's way defenseless players. How a player coming across the middle to catch a football is a defenseless player in a split-second decision, I don't know. But fortunately for Ohio State and just justice, Jordan Fuller was exonerated for the would-be targeting penalty in the fourth quarter, which would have kept him out of next week's Big Ten championship game. We don't know how much the loss of Shaun Wade, who was kept out of the game by Ohio State, affected its secondary play. But again, if there was a weakness in this game for the Buckeyes, linebackers in coverage. The linebackers were really good against the run, but in coverage, they lacked. And certainly the secondary did on occasion as well. But credit the Michigan passing game. We talked about it all week. Hopefully you caught our mini previews. The Michigan renaissance on offense, starting with the Penn State second half and continuing against really good defenses in Michigan State and Indiana, was stellar in this game in the passing offense. All right, key play here was at 28-13, Michigan could have gotten within 1 score late in the first half. Driving down the field, through the air, Shea Patterson on a key 3rd and 9 just drops the football, just drops the snap. They showed the replay. You see his eyes off the snap too early. Got to secure the snap first. Of course, he's looking to see where he's going to go with the football and trying to read where the pass rush and the blitz possibly is coming from. Shea Patterson drops the snap. So that's a key Michigan mistake. Instead of possibly 28-20, not that they would have scored a touchdown for sure, but possibly 28-20, he just gets the football. And actually, Robert Landers with a fumble recovery on that one. So Michigan denied at 28-13. It was 28-16 at the half. Donovan Peoples-Jones with a big drop in the end zone. This was late in the first half as well when the game was still a 2-score game. Donovan Peoples-Jones coming across the middle. Shea Patterson, boom, right in the gut. Disruption made by the Ohio State defenders. They did get a hand on the football. So it wasn't just a flat-out drop, but Peoples-Jones dropped the football, trapped it on the ground. That led to the field goal, 28-16. So the potential of 2 Michigan touchdowns late in the first half became a Michigan field goal. So instead of possibly 28-27, 28-28, we've got a 28-16 game at half. Michigan also gave a gift after stopping Ohio State. The Buckeyes were punting 4th and 4. The special teams of Michigan, offsides, give the gift to Ohio State. The Buckeyes then score a touchdown. So that another gift. 28-16, we still have a game at the half at that point. JK explodes right out of the box. First series of the second half with a huge run. Again, the Ohio State offensive front and run blocking was superior. What I found interesting in the first couple drives of the second half, and it carried on through the second half, Ohio State lining up Justin Fields under center gave Michigan a bit of a different look, something that we don't see from these teams very often. Of course, something that we all grew up with watching the quarterback take the snap directly from center. KJ Hill with a touchdown, 35-16 on the slant. And Ronnie Bell had a big drop on the next series. So, again, it's 35-16 Buckeyes, and Michigan needs everything that they can possibly muster to stay in the game and get in the game. Ronnie Bell, their most dependable and productive receiver this year, drops a throw that would have been a first down conversion. Michigan's got a punt again. Another key play in this game that might get lost. Again, it's still a game to a certain extent at this point. 35-16. Michigan punts. Michigan's special teams players have the punt surrounded at the 1-yard line, and they let it go into the end zone. They bat it around and knock it around and fumble it around, and they can't stop it at the 1-yard line. Buckeyes take over at the 25. 7 minutes left in the third quarter was the play on Justin Fields in which his knee collapsed. He left for 5 or 6 plays. Chris Chuckanoff came in, completed a big 3rd and 5 play to KJ Hill, who made a tremendous play in just stopping on the ball. And it wasn't the best pass in the world, but Chuckanoff completes the one ball that he threw, 1 out of 2 on the day for him. And again, we mentioned it off the top. Fields comes back in the game, shows his tremendous athletic ability, playing with a knee brace after re-entering the game. Flush to his left, throws the dime to Garrett Wilson. 3 catches for a $118 for the 5-star out of Texas, Garrett Wilson. Buckeyes led at 42-16, and pretty much from there, we will highlight the one Michigan glimmer of hope, the flurry that they put on. They seemed a bit demoralized once it got to 42-16. They dropped 3 consecutive passes, killed that series. But Garrett Wilson, the aforementioned 5-star out of Texas, muffs the punt. Michigan recovers at the Buckeye 26. They only got a field goal there, but Olave dropped a bomb that would have been a touchdown for the Buckeyes. So there was a span of about 5 or 6 game minutes in which Ohio State was up big 42-16, but Olave drops a bomb that would have been a touchdown. Garrett Wilson muffs the punt that led to a field goal. After the Olave drop, Michigan goes on a drive, throwing the ball downfield again, and Hassan Haskins started to become a factor in this game. And Michigan scored the touchdown to make it 42-27. So they scored 11 straight points, got a 2-score game with about 10 minutes left, but the Buckeyes put the throttle down, and that was it. Ohio State marches on to the Big Ten Championship game undefeated. Ryan Day is 12-0, much like Urban Meyer was in his first season in Columbus in 2012, going 12-0. But, of course, the Buckeyes on probation did not play for the national championship. Meyer won another 12 straight to start 2013 before a Big Ten Championship game loss to Michigan State. Ryan Day, 12-0. Jim Harbaugh, 0-5 against Ohio State. Aside from this game, it seems as though Michigan had made progress. They showed resiliency coming back against Penn State, coming back the next week to throttle Notre Dame. Notre Dame is not an elite team. Michigan's a good team, a good program, but Jim Harbaugh is not being paid $7+ million a year for good, for top 15 good. He's being paid to win championships. 9-3 will not get you fired, even at Michigan, with the expectancy of beating Ohio State at some point. But Jim Harbaugh, if he does not win championships at Michigan, I would expect this type of outcome next year to result in a firing. 9-3, 10-2, regardless of the record, not being able to beat Ohio State and go to the Big Ten championship game will result in a firing, I would think, in year 6. But it's year 5, and it's still a strong program recruiting extremely well. But Jim Harbaugh, if he's in a battle with Ohio State for a recruit, what can he possibly sell at this point? They go back to the drawing board, try to figure it out. How do they stop Ohio State's elite pass receivers and offensive playmakers? They just have not been able to do so, especially the last 2 years. And for as much as I respect J.T. Barrett's resume and his track record and his contribution to Ohio State football, you got to think Joe Burrow, Dwayne Haskins, those quarterbacks might have been lighting up Ohio State or Michigan in a similar fashion even before the last 2 Ohio State offensive performances against Michigan here in 2018, 2019. Ohio State, Michigan, Buckeyes fans, you've got to be gloating about your team. What else is there to say? Who would you rather play? Do you care who you play in the Big Ten championship game, Minnesota or Wisconsin? Michigan fans, what has to happen? You're recruiting at nearly the level of Ohio State, but you're not. You have the disadvantage of not having as talent-rich a high school football playing state in Michigan than Ohio. But the pressure's on Jim Harbaugh. It will be interesting to see what he has to say after this game. What can he say? We're doing our best. I'm proud of my team. They fought hard. We got to figure this out. That's what he continues to say. What else can he say? Ohio State 56, Michigan 27, another Buckeye blowout in the game. Please lock it in here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Like, comment, share the videos, and subscribe to keep us going, covering college football like nobody else. We will continue with Rivalry Week. I will definitely get to the Wisconsin-Minnesota game and the Iron Bowl for sure. Oklahoma State tonight, a huge game in the Big 12 for the Sooners college football playoff hopes as well. Keep it locked in. We'll see you next time.